I want to be as confident as Ben Shapiro. I want to be as right. He says things and they must be real and true because he definitely researched them beforehand. I don't have the time to do that. I'm just going to parrot the things he says. Unfortunately, the very first thing we got to talk about today is a combination of my favoriteest people, Ben Shapiro and also Andrew Tate, because, I don't know, when it rains, it pours, and I don't want to know what it rains when Ben is sad. I just really don't want to know at all. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into the fan art section before we get into what Ben Shapiro's opinion of Andrew Tate is, because that's going to be a thing. This one is from Cosmic Lucy, also Bardlock Moses. Thank you very much for the tier 1 subscription. This is from Cosmic Lucy. Said, I decided to make a needle-felted slime Suris. The slime usually doesn't have the eye details, but since I'm a sucker for heterochromia, I included it. Last thing, if you, Suris, happen to want it, I can mail it to you, but for one, I didn't want to assume, but I also didn't know where I could mail it. Do you have a P.O. box? Actually, I do have a P.O. box. It is linked at the top of my Twitter. So if you want, please message me, and I'll send it to you. Made for fun, but don't have a use for it now. So I'd be happy to send it to someone who might appreciate it. You know what, Cosmic Lucy? I think I will get in a conversation with you about that. I think that's a thing I am going to do. The next one we have here is from our very own Mr. Stopheles, who is official channel artist for unfortunate reasons. I don't actually know why I made that decision, and I don't know why there is official channel art that is on every video that is using Stoff's work. I feel like that's something that in a few years I'm going to look back on and go, why the hell did I do that? But anyway, from Stoff, been having Jet Set Radio brain rot. The music is just too damn good, so have a Jet Set Radio style Suris. Well, thank you, Stoff. This is nice and tame. Nice and tame compared to other things that have been done by you. Anyway, as always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider hitting the sub button. And also, if you have not hit the like button on the video, please consider doing that too. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into actually thinks about Andrew Tate.
So I have a lot of younger listeners who are big fans of Andrew Tate, who really enjoy Andrew Tate. Now, the big news over the course of the last couple of weeks is that Andrew Tate, for those who don't know, Andrew Tate is a very online guy who was a lightweight kickboxing champion, I believe, and he's become big in the so-called manosphere. He was banned from YouTube, I believe. He was banned from Twitter. And he was banned from these things because he was a self-described misogynist, right? Somebody who believes that men are superior to women in pretty much every possible way. Well, over the last couple of weeks,
I mean, this is kind of a succinct way of describing the situation. Let's continue.
He got in an online fight with Greta Thunberg in which he was tweeting at her about how he had Bugattis and lots of gas guzzlers, and he was heating up the climate. And then she tweeted back at him that he had a small dick. It was all very silly. And then one day later, he ended up being arrested by Romanian authorities.
Oh yeah, he's glossing over some very important details, like the fact that, I don't know, one of the reasons that he gets kicked off of platforms isn't just for his misogyny, but because alleged human trafficking, could be a good reason.
The allegations against Andrew Tate is that he was engaging in sex trafficking. According to the New York Post, police in tactical gear descended on a villa where Andrew Tate and brother Tristan were staying Thursday to detain the British brothers on kidnapping and rape charges, judicial sources told Romanian outlet Libertatea. Video shows the officers with battering rams and guns sweeping through the dark villa before escorting Tate into a car. The brothers in April had allegedly detained 2 young women, one with American citizenship and one Romanian, inside the villa against their will, where they were subjected to physical violence and mental coercion, according to the authorities. Police said the Tates allegedly formed an organized crime group and sexually exploited women by forcing them to perform pornographic demonstrations for the purpose of producing and disseminating through social media platforms.
Which we do know to be true. Because there's more ways to force people than just, putting a gun to their head and saying, hey, do this thing. You also can force somebody to do something by emotionally manipulating them into doing it and making somebody feel as if they don't have a choice, right? So, a thing that Tate would do is he would take a woman and start flirting with them and talk about all the money he could get her and the possibility of marriage and all of the ways that he could just make her life better. And then, yep, just wham, bam, the minute that she arrived on his property, now suddenly it was, hey, you're not allowed to leave. You've got to go perform for me. If you want to be happy with me, this is the thing you're going to have to do. By the way, there's 15 other girls in the back, and you're just going to have to deal with that. Sorry. It's a honey trap. You make things sound so sweet on the surface, and then as soon as you have the person in, you make their lives miserable. That's so. Let's go ahead and continue Ben Shapiro's attempt at taking all this in.
The brothers had been questioned for 5 hours by the police back in April, but were released at the time. And then they are currently still being held in Romania right now. Now, Tate had predicted for a long time this would happen to him. He had predicted that people were going to come after him, that they were going to arrest him. Does that mean that he's not guilty of something? I have no idea. I have no idea whether he's guilty of these crimes. It could be trumped up. It could be the Romanian authorities who are embarrassed by Tate. It could be anything. I don't place a lot of stake in the law-abiding nature of the Romanian authorities. I literally know nothing about how the law... Andrew Tate literally said he moved to Romania in order to avoid law enforcement. So I don't know whether that's true or whether that's not. I assume all of that will come out in the wash. The thing I want to focus on is the popularity.
He assumes it's all going to come out in the wash, but it's not really what happens if you're in an unjust system, which Tate specifically went to for the purpose of. But at least Ben did note that that's a thing Tate said.
Of Andrew Tate for a moment. And it's fascinating because, again, I have a lot of young listeners who are interested in the stuff that Andrew Tate says. The reason they're interested in the stuff that Andrew Tate says is because he's transgressive. He's transgressive in that he says things that no one else will say. Some of the stuff that he says is, frankly, terrible, and some of the stuff that he says is not terrible. Some of the stuff that he says is actually a version of truth.
So I have a question. How specific do you think Ben Shapiro's going to get with the things that he agrees with and the things he doesn't agree with? I think he's going to give a couple examples, but I wonder how far that rabbit hole he's willing to sink.
When he says that promiscuity is generally a bad thing, he says it only among women. Or he says when he says promiscuity for women is a bad thing.
Okay.
That used to be a relatively uncontroversial thought, but it's been considered bad to say that now. It's wrong. It's banned. Now, we live in a moment because...
it's not banned at all. Now we're just waiting for your opinion on that. How much do you agree with that, Ben?
We are so censorious online and sort of in the political world. We're so censorious. The Overton window has shrunk so much that there are two concepts that have been crimped. One is truth, as in Pope Benedict XVI truth. Things, eternal things of value that you're not supposed to say anymore. A man is not a woman. Men should marry women. They should have kids. These are things that are now considered very controversial in the elite circles of the West. You're not supposed to say any of those things. So truth, capital T, long-standing truths.
None of those are truths, though. Those are all opinions. Men can't be women is not a truth, it's an opinion, because what our concepts of men and women are change with society and change with time. The fact that we should have kids is also an opinion. It comes down to what kind of a world you're trying to make. It comes down to what your values are. If you ask an antinatalist, they're not going to agree with you that people should be having babies. That's not a truth. That's just an opinion. I'm sorry, Ben, but I feel as though, and I could be wrong, but it feels, from my perspective, that what you're doing is you're taking opinions and you're hoisting them up onto the petard of being, like you say, capital T truths, and then now that you have your opinions up there on the kickstand of truth, you're going to shout them out from the rafters as if they are always long-standing truths, despite the fact that every single one of those is an opinion. But as long as you have the confidence to say that, oh, these things are true, then your audience is going to resonate not with the character of what you say, but with the confidence at which you say it. Well, he wouldn't be saying these things if he wasn't so confident about it. He obviously believes these things, and he's obviously a very smart person. Those are the things that somebody in your audience might think listening to your content. And as a result, you can say all kinds of dumb things, like how Matt Walsh does, but you can say them with such the air of confidence that other people, when they listen to it, they go, oh, I want to be as confident as Ben Shapiro. I want to be as right. He says things and they must be real and true because he definitely researched them beforehand. I don't have the time to do that. I'm just going to parrot the things he says. We see this happen a lot with all kinds of content creators. And it's not just political, right? Bradley Rutlick, thank you for reading me your points for you fucking degen. But it's not just in the political spheres that we see this. We see this even in gaming YouTube, right? I don't know how many friends of mine in gaming YouTube have had people either in their comment section or come up to them in real life and literally tell them their own opinions on game. Not person A tells person B person A's opinion. No, person B is the content creator, and person A is telling the content creator's own opinion on a game, as if they didn't already make a video about, that thing. And that's the thing that it just happens. Somebody will come up to you and they'll be like, hey, you think this thing. Yeah, thanks. Thank you for parroting what I said. Exactly as I said it. That's a little creepy. Please don't do that.
These things have been denied. And then there's also been stuff that's been denied that's just kind of garbage, like stuff that's not nasty to say or yucky. And so what's been crimped is courage, right? People are afraid to say the truth, and they're also afraid to say their opinion because they lack courage.
Okay, but people say their opinion all the time on the internet. I'm sorry. Also, it's not a courage thing. Everything you've just labeled as truth there is literally just an opinion.
Social sanctions are so strong. And so because the social sanctions are so strong, and because they go beyond just crimping the truth, they go to crimping pretty much everybody's feeling that they can even say anything, their opinion, jokes. Because of all of that, courage is now held in higher value than truth itself. Being willing to transgress lines is considered a highest value, because in a time where courage is under attack, courage is a very, very high value. Courage is always the first value. I mean, C.S. Lewis says, courage is the first value, Christian. Courage is the first value in order to speak the truth. But courage is instrumental.
Okay, so the first thing I gotta say about that is this. Ben's half right here, but more leaning on wrong. So yes, online it is harder to speak your opinion without getting a social mob to come down on. That's true. That's the thing. Go on Twitter for any amount of time. Go on Facebook for any amount of time. If you want to say something that's even mildly controversial, then yeah, people are going to get their feathers riled up. But that's literally because the public square is everywhere now. The public square is not just the people around you. The public square is everyone all the time, all at once, and nobody can punch each other in the face. So yes, he's kind of right about that. But to say that, oh no, people aren't allowed to say things anymore, I think is a bit of an exaggeration. Yes, there is much easier access to social ramifications for, online blunders, right? That's true. That is just the state of how the world is now. But the existence of the internet, meaning that we have more ability to see those social ramifications and to see them faster than before, it doesn't mean that people can't say the bigoted things they want to say. They're still able to do it, especially on Twitter now, with Musk having taken over. What was it he said? Comedy is legal now? Like, Ben, the reason that people value, quote, courage so much isn't because the reality is that people can't speak what they want to say. The reason people value it more now, Ben, is because people like you talk about how they can't speak, talk about how they are censored, talk about how they are unable to speak their mind the way they want. And when you do that all the time, when you spend so much time complaining about your inability to say the things that you want to say, to speak your mind, to go on the internet and spout whatever you want, when you talk so much about how that's a thing you can't do, eventually you're going to convince some people that you, despite using your ability to speak very, very often, that you are not able to say the things you really want to say. Because you've convinced an entire group of people that that's reality, that that's true. Evidence to the contrary exists. You literally doing anything on your show at all the way you do it is evidence to the contrary that, that you're as censored as you say. But when you say, oh, it's because of these woke liberals that I'm not able to speak what I want, that I'm not able to say what I want, it's because of these people that I'm not able to speak my mind, despite the fact that you're very clearly speaking your mind there, eventually people are going to listen to that and go, oh, I have to value courage more than the truth now. Like, Ben, you are literally one of the people that created this scenario. people valuing one's ability to say controversial things over and above the truthfulness of the thing they are saying, that's a reality you curated. I hate to tell you, that's a thing you did.
Courage is useful so that you can speak the truth. What's happened in our society because we have decided to shut down so many modes of speech, because we've decided to ban people from social media and unperson them and destroy their lives and their livelihoods. Because we've done all of that, people who speak loudly are considered the best and the bravest. And it's particularly appealing to young people. And so when you draw a lot of fire, the way that Andrew Tate does, a lot of people see that as more courageous than if you say something that is, say, a little bit better calibrated and more in consonance with eternal truth. Whoever draws most fire, in other words, is the person who's considered the most courageous. And this sort of pithy saying that is mostly true, but kind of not, right? That you must be over the target if you're drawing flack. A large percentage of the time, that's true. But sometimes the person who's drawing the most flack is what they're saying is actually kind of bad, right? So the problem for Andrew Tate, and the reason why he's become so popular, is because he's very transgressive. He says the thing that no one else will say. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's really not good. We'll get to more on all of this in just a
I like how the way he said that was functionally saying nothing at all. He basically said nothing. Andrew Tate says things. Some of it's good. Some of it's not good. Okay? And who cares? Like, that was just a clump of nothing statements wrapped up in a cheese ball.
one moment. First, the situation in Ukraine continues to be extremely bad. That war apparently is just going to go on for the foreseeable future. Well, whatever you think politically about the war, there are a lot of people on the ground in Ukraine right now who are suffering. My friends over at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews have been working in Israel now, birth and blank food. And so we're going to look at some of the things Andrew Tate says, because
I don't know if it's a bad advertisement. I don't, but I'm still going to say something DDLG Playground, I guess.
Again, he's a very popular figure, particularly with young men. And when people ask me about Tate, one of the things that I've said this to some teenage boys who are friends of the family.
Okay.
They asked me about him, like, I don't know, a week ago. What I said is some of the diagnoses that Andrew Tate has of secular society are correct. His prescriptions.
Which ones?
Are largely incorrect. And the things that he puts, he has a list of rules, and many of the rules that he puts online are actually pretty good. And then the way that he acts, right? His version of masculinity, which is have a bunch of kids by a bunch of different women, live in a castle with 30 Bugattis, right? Put pictures online and muscle put, like this kind of stuff. That's not the traditional mark of masculinity.
Who cares about the traditional mark of masculinity? Tradition is not an argument. Like, I'm not trying to defend Andrew Tate there. I'm just saying, like, the tradition part is superfluous.
The 16th would say, what I would say, what sort of members of the traditional wisdom cadre would say, is that the ultimate in manliness is get married, protect your family, provide for your kids and your family, provide a space for them to grow in safety and security, provide them roles and responsibilities. This is the role of a man. This is what a man does. What Andrew Tate focuses mainly on is the critique of how society has undermined a lot of this stuff. And then his prescription is, I'm going to put a picture of myself online with like 30 cars, and it makes me look cool, it makes me look masculine. Hey, I also like cool cars. Cool cars are amazing. But because we have lost eternal truth, because we have decided as a society the eternal truth has to go, the backlash is not coming in the form of a restoration of eternal truth. Very often the backlash is coming in the form of punch the people in the face who destroyed the eternal truth. That's the society in which we're living. And I'm afraid that could get worse unless what we actually have is a return to some eternal truth. So here's a couple of clips of Andrew Tate, and it kind of shows...
return to some... Okay, but the eternal truths you're talking about are not ones we necessarily need to have. So, okay, here's the thing. When you are in Ben Shapiro's camp, you have to realize that he's not just saying men and women having kids and kids having a father and mother is a good thing. He's saying that exclusively that is a good thing. So that means that if two lesbians have a kid or two gay men have a kid, and yes, before you come to the comment section, something, trans people exist. It's very easy to have these scenarios happen. I don't care about your pedantics. I don't care about your semantics. I don't care about your pedantry. You can literally just go find a shopping cart, jump in it, and, I mean, you've played Go Simulator, right? Anyway, all that aside, he'll ignore any scenarios that will be equally good for children in terms of how parenting happens in order to favor specifically just the nuclear model. He'll ignore the fact that a gay couple or a lesbian couple can raise a child just as well as a straight couple, all of that will go out the window in favor of, exclusive of, a standard nuclear family model, which is, a father, a mother, a couple of kids. Father does the earning of the monies, and woman does the making of the sandwiches. That's the ideal for Ben, and anything outside of that ideal is bad. I bring that up because a lot of times people will say that if you disagree with somebody saying that the nuclear family is good, if you disagree with that, then you're disagreeing with reality. Don't you want kids growing up with their dads? Well, yeah, I do. I want kids being able to grow up with their parents. I do. But their parents can mean a lot of things. I'm an advocate for found families over blood families when it's available. A lot of times. Your found family sometimes can be your blood family. Sometimes the people you were born into are the family that you prefer over anybody else. Not all the time, though. And forcing people into the blood relatives all the time is not that great. We have to be careful when we're advocating for other alternative lifestyles, other alternative family setups, polyamorous families, lesbian families, gay families, families that involve trans people. We have to make sure that we are not saying that these things are better than cis families. This is an issue I see a lot on mostly with polyamory, right? A lot of times I've seen polyamorous people will say that, my relationship is better than yours. I get to have more sex. And also, if I go to work, then there's multiple people taking care of my child. It takes a village to raise a child, after all. By the way, did you know that we have multiple income streams coming into the same house? Sleeping arrangements suck, though. Scheduling's an ass, though. Like, you get that whole superiority complex, and it doesn't happen all the time. I've seen, like, I'm polyamorous. I know plenty of polyamorous people that don't have that superiority mindset, but I've seen that superiority mindset enough being part of online poly groups that I really, really think that we do ourselves a massive disservice when we try to advocate for alternative lifestyles, when people who want to advocate for other ones, we start feeling like we're talking past each other. We start feeling like we're arguing for one over the other when we should be arguing for everybody's equal ability to make a choice between all. It's just like when people can't understand that the pro-choice crowd aren't necessarily pro-abortion. Just abortion is one of the options that the pro-choice crowd wants people to have access to. I don't know. I bring that up because Ben Shapiro made me think about it. That isn't necessarily a takedown of what Ben is saying outside of the fact that he argues for that exclusivity. And I would like to argue against that. So I guess this is actually an argument against Ben. Just not in the way that I originally would have.
Shows you what I'm talking about, that some of what he's saying is kind of half correct, but he's saying it in such a way that is meant to draw fire. So here is Andrew Tate talking about women belonging to men.
Have you noticed that Ben, in all 8 minutes, hasn't actually given an opinion on what he thinks about Andrew Tate?
I don't know, because I think the women belong to the man. I think the woman's given over
that's inherently where you get called sexist.
No, it's not. Well, you can call me sexist if you want, but if you look at marriage, it's the bride's father who gives her away. It's not the groom's father.
In
Is
old
it?
tradition.
The woman is always given over to the man. Read the Bible, read the Quran, you can go to
You're walking down the aisle, no chance. There's like African cultures where they don't do that.
I'm sure there are some obscure tribes somewhere. I mean, I can't say I'm not a professional.
But you get it. You seem like a very smart guy.
Understand
you
why
seem like a
people would
smart
say
guy.
that.
You're saying a woman is the property of a man if they're dating.
I'm not saying they're appropriate. I'm saying they're given to the man, and they.
I'm not saying they're property, but I am saying they're property. Like, Jesus Christ.
Belong to the man. It doesn't mean they're pure property without emotion.
Pure property. So they are a type of property then, Andrew.
Okay, so notice the contrast here. So Portnoy is so afraid of saying that a woman and a man belong together, and that a woman, when she gets married, now
what?
belongs to the man sexually in the same way that the man ought to belong to the woman sexually. This is literally Genesis 2:24.
Like, there's more than one person I'm interested in, and I do not give myself wholly to any person I'm interested in sexually, because as a human being who is polyamorous, my sexuality, my ability to do things with other people, that is my prerogative. That is my thing. Were a person to say, hey, stay with me exclusively, that would be my signal to go, okay, cool. It looks like I'm leaving now. It looks like I'm going away now. But that's a major disagreement I have with Ben. Ben is anti-polyamory. But okay, Ben. That's an interesting take. You think that the other person is scared to say that the couples belong to each other. I didn't see that there, but where's your opinion?
Right. For this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. And Genesis 2:24. So that would be the eternal truth. But that is the truth according to every mainstream religion. That would be the thing that you would say. And the reason for that, from an evolutionary biology perspective, is because when a woman joins with a man and they create a baby, the woman is sure of her parentage, but the man is not sure of his parentage. And so we as a society tend to prefer monogamy, right? This is the evolutionary biological reason why humanity embraced monogamy, is because it is the best distribution of sexual resources. It is from an evolutionary biological perspective, not a moral perspective. That's just evolutionary biology. Brett Weinstein, Heather Heyer talk about it. Right? Heather Heying talk about it. Right? All of this is very well established.
Cool.
When it comes to the morality is that a woman should not be promiscuous, and a man should also not be promiscuous. Now, this is the part where Andrew Tate gets the diagnosis right, but he gets the solution wrong. So here is Andrew Tate talking.
I mean, but he didn't even get the diagnosis right there, though. If the diagnosis is people shouldn't be promiscuous, the question then becomes, well, why? Why should people not be promiscuous? What is the benefit of people not being promiscuous? Is there a reason they shouldn't be? If we want to talk about from an evolutionary, biological perspective, promiscuity is actually a form of mating ritual, and that human beings, when they do the mating ritual, this is a way that they get together and signal to each other that they want to do the fuck. And because they get together and signal they want to do the fuck with their promiscuity, then when they do the fuck, they know that they both are meant to be together for at least that one night. And that is a thing that happens. That is a mating ritual that evolutionarily, biologically, is a thing that we are doing. Because we, as human beings, to survive, need to do the fuck. I'm sorry. Ben, you can't talk about evolutionarily, biologically, blah, 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 and then immediately be like, actually, morally, it's wrong. Like, no, Ben, promiscuity as a thing that we do as human beings would have evolved as a social way to signal a want to mate, Ben. And then more variants of promiscuity would have come up after that as ways to breed self-confidence, as ways to, signal other things. Doesn't matter. The point is, promiscuity is a tool, and that tool is used for things like self-confidence. It can be used for, signaling that you want, the fuck. It can be used for a lot of things, man. I think promiscuity is amoral. I don't think it's moral or immoral.
About how women should not be promiscuous, it's bad for them.
Well, a woman could say that same thing if she decided. She could say, I can sleep with multiple men, but my men can't sleep with multiple women if she so choose. We're all free individuals, right?
I mean, yeah, that's a thing that they can say, and there are some arrangements where that is the case. There are some arrangements where you have that agreement. You're up in a poly relationship, and there's like 3 monogamous guys that are with one polyamorous girl, and they don't want to find anybody else, and they don't really give a shit, but they all love the same person, so they're in that relationship. They're called polymono relationships. They are a thing. They exist. I don't advocate for them personally, because I feel like there's a lot of side effects that come to that particular relationship structure, but if it's a relationship structure you want to go for, go ahead. Like, that's a thing that happens on both sides of the gender spectrum.
Right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't agree if a woman said that.
I don't think I would personally find that revolting, correct? But there are women who find what I say revolting.
So you're not telling other people what to think. You're just saying how you think.
Yeah, I mean, if I think that
yeah, but you're an influencer, so there's the understanding that people should care what you think and potentially even follow what it is. You can't just be like, this is what I think. You don't have to follow it. No, you're an influencer. When you say things, people will follow it. Mr. Whiskers, thank you for resubscribing. And Ilamakima, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an owl.
I think if a man is not sexually exclusive, it's not the same as if a woman is, because with a woman you have the paternity issue. With a man you don't have a paternity issue. Look, read the Bible. Every single man had multiple wives. Not a single woman had multiple husbands. It's against the will of God. It's disgusting. And the eyes of God himself.
Okay, so again, historically speaking, what Andrew Tate is saying is not wrong. Morally, the reason why church, where we talked about the capacity for change within eternal rules, moves towards monogamy as opposed to polygyny, right, where a man has multiple wives, the reason for that is because
polygyny, that's a weird way to say polygamy.
The sophisticated arrangement of one man and one woman is the best arrangement. And so it is not good when a woman...
Is it the best arrangement? Why is it the best arrangement? You keep on saying that, but you don't actually... You're not backing it up. You just say it's the best arrangement.
Is promiscuous and also happens not to be good when a man is promiscuous. Those may not be equivalent in evolutionary biological terms, but that is why eternal morality suggests one man, one woman. So the point that I'm making here is that when the moorings of a society come loose, when the society starts to sort of float, when the iceberg is floating, is no longer moored to anything that keeps it stable, once that happens, the reactions tend to be extremely chaotic. You get an entire movement on the left that is incredibly destructive, and you get a reactive movement that gets a lot of the diagnosis right, but a lot of the diagnosis wrong, right? It gets a lot of diagnosis right and a lot of prescription wrong.
I like how he phrases it as if it's the left's fault and the right is merely upset that the left is doing things, ignoring the fact that the progressive right often are the instigators to a lot of our culture war conflicts.
Right, we have many problems in our society. Those problems continue into the realm of male and female. It encourages bad behavior by women. But then the answer to that is not bad behavior by men. The answer to that is better behavior by women and better behavior by men.
Okay, so we are 11 minutes and 54 seconds into this 12-minute and 34-second video. And I'm just curious, Ben, when you're going to give your opinion of what you actually think about Andrew Tate. We have 40 seconds. Will you manage it?
So if we're going to have a restoration, we need to have an actual restoration. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not...
Nope. Nope. And that was it. That was the entirety of the video. The video is called, Here's What I Actually Think About Andrew Tate. And not once in the video did he give an opinion on Andrew Tate. He said he gave platitudes that didn't mean a whole lot. He says some good things. He says some bad things. He gets some of the diagnoses right, but he gets some of the diagnoses wrong. He gets some of the ways that we should do things wrong. Here's some of the things he gets wrong, but as for my personal opinion of how I feel about him, I guess he's going to wait and see what happens with the verdict on human trafficking before he comes down hard on an opinion on Andrew Tate, which is a really cowardly thing to do. Like, you didn't make any point. You just kind of said facts into the aether and hoped that your audience would just kind of glomp onto them. So maybe he's a fan of Andrew Tate. I don't know. And that's the thing. It should not be after a 12-minute video of your opinion on Andrew Tate that we somehow don't know your opinion of Andrew Tate. That should not be the case. We should know by the end of that, but we don't. But I don't know. I guess let me know your opinions of Andrew Tate and also Ben Shapiro's highly sus attempt at giving his own opinion on Tate. Let me know what you think down there. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, instant end of video tagline here.